Hello lovely people, how you doing? How's everything been this past week? Today we're going to be looking at lesson 14 and we're going to be correcting the process, the winemaking process. Why? Because we've looked at something grammatical, which are the verbs that we use when we describe a process. So here's the correction. So lesson 14, we said we were going to look at the process. Now this is a text taken from Wikipedia. I know it's not obviously the best of sources for the wine world, but it does exemplify what I wanted to show you. And that is I wanted to show you what type of verb we use when we're talking about processes. Now we're going to go through the correction. I'm going to read it out so you can also have a little bit of pronunciation and we can go through those verbs. Right, so harvest is, because obviously it's a present simple because it is something, is the picking of the grapes and in many ways the first step in wine production. Grapes. Now here we have two spaces, but is one verb. Is one verb that is in the passive format. Now the passive format is created with the verb to be plus the participle, which is a verb either from the irregular verb list, the third column, or ed. So grapes are harvested, or grapes are either, so this means either one or the other because we have either, and after we have or. So grapes are either harvested mechanically, so by a machine, or by hand. So here we have one example of the present simple passive, and we use the passive to talk about processes, where the actual person that does the process is not as important as what is being done. Obviously, we know people pick grapes. So we don't need to say Juanito or Pep picked the grapes or harvested the grapes. We just say grapes are harvested by tal. The decision to harvest grapes is typically made by the winemaker. Again, here we have the decision. In the previous sentence, we said grapes are. Grapes are because grapes are plural. Are is the plural form of the verb to be we use. The decision to harvest grapes is the decision is. Again, this decision is made by somebody. And as you can see in this sentence, the somebody that actually makes this decision is the winemaker, and it comes after the verb. So, the decision to harvest grapes is typically made by the winemaker and informed by the level of sugar, acid, and pH of the grapes. Here we have the word and, which combines two sentences. So therefore, we have informed. We do not need to use the verb to be again. We already have the verb to be, which is made, because it is made and informed. We do not have to say the decision to harvest grapes is typically made by the winemaker and is informed by, no. So because it's repetition, we don't need to repeat the auxiliary verb, which is exactly the same in both cases, because we have a coordinator, which is the word and. Other considerations include a present simple. A present simple that is not a passive. Why? Because the actual subject of this sentence is, or say is, considerations. Usually the subject is the person or thing that does the verb or does the action. In a passive sentence, the subject is the thing that receives the action. So other considerations include phenological ripeness, Ripeness is an adjective here. Sorry, is a noun. Because the adjective would be to be ripe. The verb is to ripen. And the actual process or the maturation is ripeness. So it's a noun. Phenological ripeness, berry flavour, tannin development, seed colour and taste. Overall disposition of the grapevine and weather forecasts are taken into account. Somebody takes them into account, but we don't need that somebody because it's obvious that somebody takes these things, the disposition of the grapevine and weather forecasts, into account. So here the subject is overall disposition of the grapevine and weather forecasts, but it's not actually the person or thing that does the action. It's the thing that receives the action. This sentence in an active format would be somebody takes into account overall disposition of the grapevine and weather forecasts. But that somebody is not exactly important in this case because we're explaining overall processes. So as you've seen, right, we've talked about the passive because we're talking about processes. I hope that was useful. We were looking at lesson 14. Next week, we're going to be going on to lesson 15, which is a speaking. We're using all the different skills that can be used when you're talking in English, about the lovely word of wine. So lovely people, see you next week. Enjoy. As they say in Spain, chin chin or cheers.